Hello everybody, I am Tanya Bro. Welcome to my channel over here on YouTube, and today I'm going to talk to you about 10 tips that you must know about Logic Pro X. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, don't forget to subscribe in case you find this video very helpful and valuable. So let's go ahead and start. Okay, so tip number one that I always like to use is the following. I go over here and I use the markers. The reason I use the markers is because visually it just helps more whenever you're trying to, let's say, for instance, I want to copy paste this part. It's a little bit easier just to do it that way, and then you come and put over here a new name for your new session. So it's always helpful. I'm very visual, so if I don't have something to have a guide whenever I'm working, I feel a little bit lost. So it just helps with time management. Even though it takes time, a couple extra minutes to do these, it's still the long term, the long run, I feel it helps more. Okay, so that's something I do, and all I have to do anytime I'm adding a new section is I come with this one and I click over here on the marker, and that way I can create, double click and just put a name for the new, let's say I'll put outro once more time, and then I just click enter, and now you have this. To color, all you have to do is Alt C, and then you have this palette of colors, and just can choose one, and charan, you have that. And if you want to erase that, just Command C, Command C, Command C, and you undo everything. Okay, so that's tip number one. Okay, once I'm over here, tip number two, and I will try to give you one that is very easy and another one that is more on the production side. So let's come over here, and sometimes we have our drums, and there's a cool trick that you can use to add some breather into the drums, and that's something I did over here. Let me see, right here. Between finishing, I have a pre-hook, and then I have a hook, and then I have the verse. So in order to create that breather between the drums, let's hear it so you can understand what I'm talking about. So I'll get my loop over here and just listen to this part. Okay, so you probably hear just the breather over here, and let me show you. So I have this pattern, right, which is basically my drums. I have kick, hi-hat, another hi-hat, and a snare, right? So that's the pattern I have for, in this case, I'm working this track, reggaeton track, and the breather is right here. So you see I delete the parts of the drum in the middle, and I just let, you see this is bar 29, bar 30. I just leave the first two of the beginning of the bar, and then the last two of that same bar before it jumps into 30. That way it feels like it's a break, but it doesn't feel like a mistake. And it just, the pattern, it just sounds lovely, like whenever you catch it up. Just make sure you leave these two in the extremes of the bar, and just the center you take it out, and that's how you create a nice breather, which sounds great, that kind of stop in the middle of the song. Okay, so that's tip number two. Tip number three, whenever we have let me see right here, any type of instrument, let's say from here, from the pre-chorus, pre-hook, sometimes it's good to build on the instrument, but also build on the sound and the volume of those. And for that, we use automation. So in order to use automation, we come over here in this icon, and it will show you show high automation, right? So we click on it, and now you have this screen. From here, you have to select what type of automation, like which instrument or plugin you want to use to do some automation. And right here, in order for have what you need to use in this case, a filter. For that type of effects, we use a filter. So in this case, I have DJM filter. This is a free plugin that you can upload and add into your whatever DAW that you're working on. In this case, in Logic Pro X, I just downloaded free. And let's take a look at what is this one going to do right here. You can see it's, well, sorry, not on that one because I don't have anything on the base. So you're going to see it right here. Sorry, in the arpeggio. So take a look at this. See how this is going up. Okay, so that's something I did for the automation. Use a filter. If you don't have DJM filters, you can also use other type of filters. For instance, I come over here, you can use auto filter. You can use this one and just play with the, let me see, in this case with the cutoff. Or you can also use, and they pretty much do the same thing, an EQ, but a single band EQ. Okay, this one. And just play around with here with low cut or high cut, depending on what type of effect that you want to give, no? And that way you can do those sort of effects. And let me just go back because I don't want to delete the DJM filter. You can also see how I use the automation over here for the drum, so it keeps opening and then build. Whenever we get into the hook, the drums are going to be all the way up and then just returning to their normal volume. And you can always play with automation and give your own feeling depending on what you're trying to achieve. And that's the key thing. There's no right or wrong whenever you're doing production. Most of the time, it's just you trying different things and see what kind of effects or what kind of sound you're trying to produce. So the plugins can be used in different ways, pretty much. Okay, tip number 4 is the following plugin that I like to use is called Knock. And the reason I put it over here is because anytime we're doing a production, most of the time we're needing the drums to kind of have more punch or have more brightness, or you want something that really gets in the track, like shows in front of the mix that you are working and producing. And the reason is because sometimes we're working with samples, so we want those samples to sound like real instruments. And in order to kind of get into that, we need to make sure that we kind of shape things a little bit. Sometimes we have wonderful hi-hats, but even though you can use an EQ or add saturation and things like that, you might have to use different amount of plugins. And the reason I like the Knock is because with one plugin, you can pretty much do all those things that you might do in drums. In this case, you'll add extra sub or extra saturation. You have 3 kinds in here, more punchiness, and just add airness, or if you want the sound of the drums to clip a little bit without being, something that you cannot work on. So this is what you can do. And you also can EQ right here. This is basically your EQ bar. So that's tip number 4. And then if we continue, something else I always like to add is an adaptive limiter. And this is just I think I mentioned it in another tutorials. Whenever we're working on the production, sometimes we're using our headphones, and while we're producing, sometimes we don't pay too much attention, or there are chances that whenever we're trying the plugins, the volume on the stereo out is peaking, and all that extra sound is getting to our ears. So the whole idea is to protect our ears, so we have good ears to produce for longer times. And it's just an extra safety for us as producers to use an adaptive limiter, just to help us with that. Whenever we're doing the mixing and all that, then we can take it out or leave it there. But this is just as a production tool, so you don't have to worry about the clipping while you're working, and then getting your ears to hurt and all that kind of stuff. Okay. And I always put it into the stereo out, and to find the adaptive limiter, you just have to come over here where it says dynamics, and then you should find it right there, and then just click. And whenever you open the plugin, most of the time it goes all the way to 2, and you can play with the out ceiling. So the ceiling is basically how much the limitation that you're putting into the adaptive limiter, like how much decibels you want the limiter to be. In this case, I can put it -2, -1, etc., or just to 0, or whatever you feel more comfort with. In this case, this one goes all the way to 2. But you can put it all the way in 0 or 1. It just depends on, pretty much I will leave it either 1, 0, -1, or -2. The safest is -2, because that way it doesn't go like you have 2 decibels before it jumps into the 0. So it's extra safetiness, we'll call it like that. Okay, so whenever we come over here, something else I want to share is, in this case, I'm using Drum Machine. And inside Drum Machine, you have all these different sounds. You have a bunch of different ones. And what I like to do, usually, instead of getting like one hi-hat from here, one kick from there, even though you might be looking for specific sounds, I rather just use all of my drums out of one Drum Machine, unless I'm looking for something else. But otherwise, I kind of whenever I'm producing, I try to be very minimalistic. So use everything and organize everything the best I can. So in this case, I use this Drum Machine in one session, like in one track. Like I have my kick, I have my hi-hats, I have the snare, everything in one track. And that way I can save CPU of my computer, and at the same time I don't have to have too many tracks if I'm going to do the same thing that is just to have these drums. And plus it also helps with organization, like I can see how long is the kick versus the hi-hat, or how long in what position I'm putting the snares. So it just helps whenever I'm doing the drums for comparison, like when it comes to the rhythmic patterns that I'm doing inside, but also helps with the plugins that I'm using. Like instead of putting a knock to each individual track, I'm just putting one knock, one plugin, and whatever I'm adding into one into the instrument, it goes into all of them, which helps with to make the drums feel glue instead of being separated. Like you feel the hi-hat is here, and it just doesn't seem to be the same drummer playing the same battery. So I think it helps better with that. Just the drums sound like one instrument instead of being different instruments. So it sounds like one, it glues better and saves time. Let's say, for instance, that you were having several, let me open more tracks. And let's say, for instance, that you have several tracks of drums. Something else you can also do, let's say you have 4 and you decide, hey, I just want to do it that way. you can select all those tracks and then come over here and create a track stack. Whenever you create this track stack, try to use Summing Stack. That way you can put, it shows you over here, you can add extra plugins and you can do the mixing, the editing of those as a bundle. So whenever I'm doing this, let's say for instance, I have a bunch of drums in here. So I'll label these drums. Let's say I had kick, and then I have, let's say, a snare and hi-hats and shakers. Let's say I have a bunch of stuff in here. So now all these are going to be inside a folder, and inside this folder I can come and add like stuff that makes the drum sound better. For instance, I can come and add a distortion, or I can come over here and add knock into a whole bundle of those drums. And that way I can kind of do the same thing I did with having all these inside one drum machine track with different just as a different way. Let's say for instance you got a loop in here and then you got snares in there, so you can always create a folder, a summing track folder. So let me flatten. Anytime you want to bring it back, flatten, and then I'll click in here and delete. And well, I'll do the delete later unless I find over here. Right, okay, it's gone. Something else inside Drum Machine is that whenever you're using either one of these instruments, you can always come over here and adjust the sound individually. Even though all the hi-hat, the kick, the snare is inside one drum machine, you can still edit each one individually. And it kind of, Drum Machine already gives you like pretty much anything you can think about that you're going to need for that, except if you want to add extra other plugins. But most of the time you're trying to change the pitch of that instrument, or how long the length of that snare to last, or do a little bit tweaking with the envelope, distortion, how the body, the presence, panning, or the volume. That way you can adjust each them individually, and all you have to do is just click on the instrument that you want to adjust. Let's say I want to change the kick, this is where I come. If I want to change the snare, that's where I come. And that way it makes it easier for finding that specific idea that you want to get into. Okay, and something else that I just want to share is whenever you come over here, there's a plugin that I love when it comes to mastering that I start using. And let me find it. Where did I put it? Mastering. This one. It's called Ulin Loudness, and it's completely free. And the reason I like to use this one is because it can tell me the loudness of my track. And obviously, as you notice over here, I put it on the stereo out, so where I have all the sounds coming in. That way, whenever I'm mixing or mastering, I can get that loudness. And whenever I upload it into different platforms, let's say YouTube or Spotify, I can have that volume level that I want for those different social media, instead of my track being very peaking or very like clipping or very loud, and then YouTube brings us down and the sound sounds a little bit distorted, or the volume is very low and you can hear and compare that. It just makes it easier if we do the job right and the best we can. And this plugin basically helps with that, just helps as a guide to know where the volume of our track is. That way we can work better in the creation of the mix or the master. Well, I hope you like this video, find it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time. Bye bye.